This is Laura,
Maritess,
Sam,
Eric,
and Syndey. Welcome to MedSurg Moments, the AMSN podcast.
This podcast is an engaging look at the lives of and surrounding medical surgical nurses.
We're proud MedSurg nurses, just like you, sharing our stories, insights, and experiences to support you in your nursing journey.
Our topic today is strategies for patients with cognitive impairment. But before we get started, we have something very special for you. Our three new co-hosts, Eric, Syndey, and Sam. We're so excited to have them on board and would like to take a few minutes to let each of them share a little more about themselves. Eric, why don't you start?
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric. I am a nurse in California, bedside nurse, MedSurg. This is my 10th year being a bedside nurse. I actually got into nursing kind of on accident. I used to tutor for the nursing program. I was a microbiology and physiology tutor and TA, and I kind of just fell into it. It was the best mistake I ever made. I love it. I don't think I'll ever leave the floor. I just love bedside nursing. There's been many opportunities to advance, and I appreciate the management side, but that's just not who I am. I love my patients. I started in L&D, I went to ER, ICU, and I always gravitated back towards MedSurg. I think I really like the interactions I have with the patients at the bedside, and that's kind of where my heart is. And so I don't think I'll ever leave the floor. Some of my personal interests outside of work include horticulture. Of course, with the great 2020 COVID, I got into plants and it just overtook my life. So now I've just got a greenhouse and everything in my home now is kind of dependent on me, which I kind of like being a nurse and being very much codependent as we can be. It's nice to have someone rely on me for their life. I grew up in San Luis Obispo, very coastal, very beach. So I'm very much into the water side of that aspect. I love hiking. I love the beach. I love swimming. And right now I'm actually up in the Bay Area in San Francisco. I left my town. It's beautiful and gorgeous, but I wanted to be somewhere in the big city, and I wanted to have those experiences while I was still young enough to have them and to appreciate them. And that's how I ended up here.
Eric, thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Syndey. Well, I'm a longtime listener, first-time host. I've been a MedSurg nurse for coming up on 5 years now. I graduated from the University of Rhode Island in 2019 and immediately commissioned into the Navy after passing my NCLEX. My first job was at a military hospital in Maryland on the cardiac telemetry unit. I was on cardiac telemetry for 2 years, and then I beep-bopped around the hospital a little bit with COVID. They were rearranging us all. I went to Buffalo, New York for a COVID response with the Navy, which was an amazing experience because I hadn't worked civilian nursing as an actual nurse. I did in nursing school, but not individually practicing. So it was a really interesting experience to get to see the difference between military nursing and civilian nursing. Now I'm stationed overseas. I'm currently working at an American hospital in Europe on a unit, what we call a multi-service ward. Here, it's extremely unique because we do everything. We do pre-op, post-op care, pediatrics, geriatrics, everything in between. We even have labor and delivery. I'm not delivering any babies, but we get to assist with NRP and sometimes take care of the postpartum couplets, which has been a huge learning experience for me to work in so many different fields all at once. I guess a fun fact about me, I'm a second-degree black belt in judo. I've been doing that essentially since birth. My grandparents met doing it. My dad owns a martial arts studio back home in Virginia. Other than that, I like to travel. I've been fortunate enough to get to travel a lot while I've been here in Europe. I've gotten to go to 10 new countries and hoping to scratch off a few more before I move back to the States at the end of the year.
Sounds very exciting. I'm a travel bug myself. Sam?
I have been a nurse for just a little bit over 8 years now. My first 4 years of practice, I spent bedside on a busy ortho neuro unit. So that's where my love for med-surg came from. I really love taking care of post-op ortho and neuro type patients. After a few years, I decided I really wanted to expand my horizons a little bit. I had always known I wanted to go back to school, but I didn't want to go the nurse practitioner route. And so my eyes were opened to MSN in nursing education. So I finished that in July of 2022. I'm also double certified. So I have my med-surg certification, and I'm also certified in nursing professional development. So that's been a fun professional development journey for me as well. And so for the last 4 years, I've been working as a nurse educator at the same hospital that I've worked at for my entire nursing career. Outside of work, I used to read for fun, but now my husband and I are getting ready to have our first baby. So that has kind of taken a priority of everything at the moment, getting everything ready for theirs. So in my third trimester, making all of those last little preparations and buying every odd, weird product that they have to offer on Amazon or baby websites. But I do enjoy reading for fun as well. I especially like psychological thrillers, ones that are really interesting, fast-paced, that keep you kind of on your toes. We live in the inland Northwest, so I live in Idaho. Lots of lakes, outdoorsy type things. We have all 4 seasons around here as well. So the opportunity, my husband loves to get out fishing. We like to do that together, take our dog out, all sorts of stuff like that, especially in the summertime. So that's a little bit about me.
Sam, congratulations on the baby.
Thank you so much.
Why don't we move on to our personal updates? Maritess, what's new?
I did share in the last episode that we're planning for a trip and we do know where we're going. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to share yet. It's going to be very exciting because it's going to be with the family. I know family time is always an amazing time to be together. Also, this will give me a little bit of break from what's going on professionally and with a lot of the volunteer stuff that I do. But the kids are really very excited. Also, a professional update. We have new team members in our team. I lead a team of educators, and it's always very nice to have new team members because you get to see what's working and not working. And when you get new team members, onboarding and orientation is always challenging, but I think this is an opportunity for our team members in our department to see what's working and what's not. So that really excites me a lot. Syndey, any personal updates you want to share to our listeners?
I've been taking some Spanish lessons. I had a lesson today with my Spanish instructor, and she said my pronunciation was great, so that always feels good. Other than that, just been working, planning my next trip. Nothing too crazy going on over here. Eric, what about you? Any personal updates?
I did have an injury at work involving a patient. The patient did fall on me, fracture my ankle, tore my Achilles tendon. I worked for 2 weeks straight before I actually got into the doctor. And by the time I was able to see the doctor and they do the MRI, he said, "I don't know how you're walking. You have no Achilles tendon." My foot looked like a poodle. It was like the size of a softball going around my ankle. And I've had my surgery and I will be off work for 6 months. I'm here now at week number 4 with my leg in a cast. And I've never been to a hospital before except to work. I've never had surgery. I've never been ill like this. And it's kind of an eye-opener. And I cannot wait to go back to work and express this to every patient that I see. At least for me, when you see someone and you're like, "Oh, it's okay, your leg's broken." And now when I see them, I'll be like, "I'm so sorry, your leg's broken." It just puts you in a different spot to be dependent for every single little thing. Not here, but like if I wanted graham crackers or a cranberry juice, I have to wait for someone to bring it to me, just like they have to wait for us to bring it to them. So it's just a new experience. That's where I'm at right now. Sam, how about you?
That story is unbelievable. My jaw just dropped listening to that. That is absolutely insane. I'm glad you're doing okay. About 10 years ago, I broke my leg in ankle situation as well. And so I know what you're going through right now too. And it definitely does give you a different perspective. I mean, I wasn't a nurse at the time, but then thinking about, man, when I was a patient, all these different things happened. And now I'm getting ready to be a patient again in the obstetrics world. So it's definitely been interesting going to birthing classes and breastfeeding classes and all these different things and trying to translate to my husband, who's not medical at all. But that is a wild story. I'm glad you're doing okay. I think 6 months, you're going to be kind of stir crazy here in a little bit if you aren't already. But if you need any book recommendations, let me know. Other than just getting ready for baby, I know I've said it like 100 times already, but man, it doesn't seem like there's time enough in the day for anything else. My husband wants me to pack already, even though we're still weeks and weeks out, but you never know, just in case. In the work world, just kind of trying to get things wrapped up and my different responsibilities allocated to my other teammates, which is always a little bit challenging because everybody is always so busy, but just trying to get all those things wrapped up. Maritess, I know what you're feeling, always bringing on new team members. That's always challenging. I think onboarding for NPD practitioners is definitely a little bit trickier. We actually redesigned ours last year and it's actually been going really well. So if you ever want to see what we're doing, let me know and I'll shoot it your way. So, but that's about it for me. Laura, what personal updates do you have to share?
I would love to know about the new strategy that you're bringing on as well for onboarding NPDs. We have lost 3 NPD practitioners in the last 4 months, I think. It's been about 1 a month, I think. And so we have new people joining our team. And that's always a challenge, is to make sure that we're telling them what they need to know. As far as personal updates for me, it is still school, and more school. I'm in the middle of my first semester of my DNP program. I have also been working on a little bit of a project to try and increase certification rates for our med-surg nurses at work. So that's been a lot of fun, mostly teaching them test taking strategies and showing them how to sign up for the test and, you know, benefits of certification and things like that. So I'm really excited to see if this increases our rates. Outside of that, everything else is status quo for me. We did start getting ready to do our restraint checkoffs again, which is going to lead us into our topic today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. Today's topic is strategies for patients with cognitive impairment. And I chose this topic for another reason, but I'm going to start with talking about restraints. Something that we talk about when we're putting patients in restraints is that we always want it to be a last resort. So I'm sure everybody knows about alternatives to restraints, all the things that we can do to try to prevent putting these patients in restraints, because our cognitive patients are challenging sometimes. And I think people jump the gun a little bit. They jump straight to putting these patients in restraints, or they go to medicating them. And I think about all of those little things that maybe we're doing to the patients that is making them worse. So if we jump straight to putting them in restraints, it's not always the best decision for them. And when we medicate them, it might clear up the issue for the time being, but what happens later on down the line? And also the other thing that I noticed is that we interrupt their sleep patterns a lot. We're waking them up every 4 hours to get their vital signs, and they're never able to get enough sleep. So I think all of these little things that we're doing are actually making things worse. It just made me feel sorry for some of these patients because I know they're challenging, and nurses on the floor have multiple other patients to worry about. So we're all really busy. How do you handle those patients that are cognitively impaired?
I think when you move away from bedside into these educator type roles, you get to spend a lot of time reflecting. What I wish I would have known in caring for these patients was how oftentimes their vision is also impacted by their disease processes. So I'm talking specifically about like patients with dementia and how there could be all these things right in front of them. And we might get frustrated being like, your food is right there, or your call light's right there, your water's right there, but they like literally can't even see it. So it's been really interesting. We've implemented some dementia care training that's actually required now for pretty much all staff going into acute care, PCU, critical care, ED areas. And our clinical violence has actually decreased quite a bit since then. So I think those have been some really impactful classes. And also I think starting out with the most basic thing is being able to identify those patients. And so we have these little communication boards outside each patient's room where there might be a little flag for like NPO or fall risk or something. And now there's this magnet with a purple flower on it. And so now anybody going into that room should know if that purple flower is outside, that they have some sort of cognitive impairment, whether it's dementia or something else. And I think that has also been really helpful in making sure everybody's on the same page going into this room. It's not going to be an interaction with an alert and oriented ×4 person. So I think that has helped a lot as well.
Wow, I like the purple flower. Instead of putting a falling leaf or something like that, a purple flower is more calm. For me, when I was still working at the bedside, I did work in a med-surg psych unit. So we do get a lot of patients with dementia. We do have patients with substance abuse. All these contributes to cognitive impairment. And I always think of 4 things all the time. It's always about communication. COINS, there's an acronym for that. It's COINS. We got to learn how they communicate. It could be a verbal, nonverbal. It could be the baseline of their communication because, first of all, like you said, they're not probably oriented at all. So making sure that we know how to communicate with them, it may be in writing or it could be like a verbal or nonverbal. And then I always have a mindset of you need to be open-minded. You need to be an advocate for this patient. Independence, I always say we need to enforce that independence for them because that's the only thing that they have. And I share that because they probably lost their memory, they lost their concentration. And so for them to be able to do little things, that would really increase their ego, their independence. They will motivate them to do other things. And then letter N is no judgment. When I hear nurses say, this person is a frequent flyer, I know what to do with this patient. I hear that. And so I would always pause and ask, what was the problem of the patient today? How can we help this patient now? It's not about the history of what happened before. Remove that judgment and try to assess the patient again. Assess and evaluate. Assess, reevaluate. And then letter S is safety. And I think we all know that. Making sure that we advocate for the patient's safety. I agree with Laura. Restraint is always our last resort. Instead of restraining them or instead of putting a blanket over them, that's considered still a restraint, by the way. Talk to the patient, sit down, have that 60-second sit down with the patient and see how you can help.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, find out, are they cold? Are they hungry? Are they just tired? Do they just want some company? Take a few extra seconds to sit down and talk with them or talk to the family member. Find out if there's something that works for them or when they act like this, does that have some kind of meaning? Take a minute to do a little bit more investigating before we jump straight to the restraints.
I think pain is another thing that can often get missed very easily in patients with cognitive impairment. So hopefully other organizations out there have some sort of alternative pain assessment that you can use for patients who aren't really able to verbalize it as easily as others.
I agree with you, Sam. That's something that we as nurses need to be really diligent about because I think sometimes, or what I've seen with some nurses is they kind of are very broad. Not everyone can say 0 to 10 on a pain scale. And so they think if they're not asking, they're not going to get it. At my facility, yes, restraints are a last resort. We have sitters. So if someone's acting up or climbing out or unsafe, we will get someone to sit with them, typically a nursing assistant, and they will stay there with them. It's very difficult to get a restraint order from the doctors because they will go through everything. And sometimes, though, it's really challenging. It's not that I don't want to sit there with them. I love sitting with the patients and talking with them, and even the ones that are a little impaired. But my assignment is typically 5 patients. And our units are long, really, really long. So you'll have someone in one room and you'll have someone about 500 feet away in the other room. And you're just ping-ponging back and forth, trying to balance it. And it is challenging. It's very challenging. And I sometimes think, it'd be nice to put everyone in restraints because then no one moves until you say, but I know that's not the way it works. And I've actually found that patients that are impaired that get put in restraints actually seem to be a little more agitated. And it sometimes makes it worse. We've had sentinel events from nurses that thought a restraint was the way to go and didn't check on their patients. It doesn't solve it. I think a lot of people think it's the magic solution. So I always look at it from, I know what I'm going into. I need to know what the patient understands, and I need to know their habits. Family is great if they have family. I always found that a wonderful resource. Calling family, sometimes family at our facility, they'll let them stay the night. We're taking someone who's a little impaired and we're putting them in a completely new environment, new surroundings, new routines. And like you said, they're not able to rest. We're waking them up all the time. We're giving them meds. They're unsure. And it's like, how are you able to relax? We've had patients that became confused because of our routine. So when I think about caring for patients with the cognitive impairment, I always think, what are they going through and how can I assist them?
Yeah, Eric, that's a great point. Leaning on the caregivers as a resource. It's scary for someone that's not impaired to be in the hospital, being woken up at all hours of the night and poked and prodded all day. Is there music that they like, a TV show that they watch every day? Do they always brush their teeth at 9 a.m? All right, let's get up into the chair and we're going to brush your teeth at 9 a.m. if we can. Establishing those routines to try to keep things as familiar as possible. Even just having a picture of their family member at the bedside or helping them set up a FaceTime phone call so they can hear that familiar voice is really important to re-engage and recenter those patients.
Even things like opening and closing the blinds. Let them see the sun, let them see the night. Sometimes we get so wrapped up as nurses, I think, because we get so busy that we forget and we're like, overhead lighting works great. Why do we need to see the sun? I think it's very beneficial to have that kind of stuff.
Do you remember that popular activity with face towels? You ask them to roll them or fold them. And then once they're all folded, let me get you a new one. And then I'm just going to be like, whoop. It's gone. Okay, let's fold another.
It makes them feel useful and gives them a purpose. It's wonderful.
Yes. And I think that's where I'm getting at. I think, one, they have nothing to do, and we just need to keep them busy. To Eric's point, environment is important for us. It's now we're becoming Florence Nightingale here, but environment is important to kind of help them with their activities too. We do have an activity apron in our organization, and I'll share with you, they love using it. There are zippers, they just use it back and forth. We mentioned something about family members. According to cdc.gov, in 2009, and can you imagine 2009, which means we need a lot more research about Alzheimer's, and I'll do my humble plug. I really advocate for Alzheimer's research on the behaviors of our patients and how we care for them. It says that an estimated 12.5 billion hours of unpaid care that were provided to our patients. We haven't really studied the behaviors that we need to know on how to take care of them. And I think family members needed that education on how to care for their families. They're with us in the hospital, but when they get home, who really takes care of them? It's their family members. So I think family education, also making sure that we provide the resources that they need upon discharge is important. But also, I'll do my humble plug, legislators really need to also know that this is needed. This is a problem in our community that we need to address.
It is, Maritess. I do know there is a condition that's termed mild cognitive impairment. So it's not full-on dementia and it's not normal aging. It's something just a little bit different. And it's just that period where your patients are starting to get forgetful. So you think, oh, well, they're just getting older. Because that happens to me. I walked into a room and forgotten why I've gone in there. That happens. So we kind of blow it off. We brush it off. But if you're already at risk for dementia, if you've got it in your family, if you've got some family history, if you're already at risk and you start to have those behaviors, the time to act is then, right at that moment. So we need to educate patients and family members that when they start to have a little bit of trouble remembering, or when they start to need more reminders, or if they have incidences where they forget to take their medications, or they're starting to miss doctor's appointments, those tiny signs, we need to pay attention to that. We need to be sure that we're talking to their family doctors about it, because it starts with just a little bit of trouble And then once it starts steamrolling, then we end up with dementia. So there's things that you can do to prevent that from happening. We've always talked about Sudoku puzzles and crossword puzzles and reading books and keeping your mind sharp, but they can also create different routines. Let them know about aids that they have at home. Technology is coming up with new things all the time, calendar apps, reminders. But if we can keep them independent at home for as long as we can, they're going to have less risk of coming back into the hospital. So we want to give them those tools and make sure that they're aware of what the signs to watch for, but also let their families know to continue watching them.
Something that I would really like to know more about is, you've all probably heard of virtual nursing that's been popping up in hospitals all over the place. I would love to know if there are any organizations out there that have seen positive impacts on the use of that with patients who have cognitive impairment, as they're able to provide any of that companionship or be able to see maybe what their triggers are or something like that. I would be fascinated to know how that works with this patient population.
Sounds like a possible DMP project for me in the future. We'll see.
There you go.
Music also helps, because as we know, our neurotransmitters work differently if we listen to a certain music. I'll share this story. There was a veteran. He was one of our patients, and he was screaming. He wasn't really my patient, but I went to the room and I asked, "What's going on? How can I help you?" He was in the Vietnam War. And as you know, I'm Asian. He saw my face, he stopped, and he started singing. I kind of creeped out, like, what's going on? Why are you singing? Like, in my head. The song that he's singing is in my Filipino language. I started singing with him too, and then we finished singing, and he said, "You are my soulmate." Because you exactly look like my wife when she was still living. I don't know how to react because I don't want to upset him. He said he didn't have any family members around. Seeing a familiar face, seeing a familiar person really calmed him down.
That's so great, Maritess. Thank you for sharing that. Well, believe it or not, we are just about out of time. But before we go, let's quickly summarize what we've learned. Being able to identify these types of patients is the first and most basic step. Once identified, let's have some kind of symbol, either outside the room, like that purple flower sticker that Sam was telling us about, but some way to alert others that when you walk into this room, that patient might be a little bit impaired so that they can watch out. Try to be an advocate for these patients and find ways to let them exercise their independence to keep some measure of control when they're in an environment that's way out of control for them. Be careful not to judge these patients, such as referring to them as frequent flyers or dismissing their activities as something that they always do. Keep patient safety at the forefront. Always remember that restraints are a last resort. Really, really, really try to do all of those alternatives that I know we're all documenting before we put our patients in restraints. Call families and see if they might be able to help the situation, if they recognize what those behaviors might mean. And find out if there's things that they enjoy. Do they have family photos that they like or music that they like to hear? Familiarity and routines can help them feel more comfortable. Well, Eric, Sam, and Syndey, how was it?
It was wonderful. It was amazing. It was everything I had dreamed of. And I want to thank everyone so much for welcoming us in with open arms and being so supportive this whole time.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. This was really fun. I've been a longtime listener of the podcast, so it was so exciting to get to sit and talk nursing with everyone, and looking forward to having many more discussions with you guys.
Yeah, this was a great topic. Good pick, Laura. I think this is going to be a really awesome group going forward.
Well, it's great to have you guys on board. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
We look forward to connecting with you on the next episode of MedSurg Moments, the AMSN podcast.
In the meantime, we encourage you to subscribe to MedSurg Moments wherever you listen to podcasts.
To reach us, use hashtag MedSurgMoments on your social posts.
Or send us an email at amsnpod@amsn.org. That's amsnpod@amsn.org.
We're all AMSN members, and if you love MedSurg Moments, we invite you to become a member of AMSN. You can learn more at www.amsn.org. Finally, the content within the MedSurg Moments podcast represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the co-hosts and may not necessarily reflect the views, thoughts, and opinions of the Academy of Medical Surgical Nurses.
Until next time, this is Eric,
Laura,
Maritess,
Sam,
And Syndey. And always remember, MedSurg Moments is a moment in our lives and a moment in our MedSurg careers that makes a huge difference.